Hi, this is Zach Fisher, and welcome to another Tech Talk. Today I'm going to be talking about blockchain versus databases. And what I've been doing recently is putting together an analogy between the real world and the virtual world of how things are done, because I think that this really helps me understand it, because my background is mechanical engineering. So going into IT, I always didn't really understand things in the IT world until I thought about them in analogous sense to the physical world. So everybody seems to probably has heard of blockchain, and most people have probably heard of what databases are. But it seems like many people have a really hard time getting their head wrapped around it. And this is a lot of people in the IT sector like me. They don't really understand blockchain, and a lot of them seem to think that blockchain can be a replacement for a database, which it can, but it's a very poor replacement for a database. So in the physical world, we have these things and they're called factories. And factories are purpose built to manufacture goods, large amounts of goods. Okay. So we have a road and it goes down and it goes to a factory. Okay. This is a very poor drawing of a factory, but maybe if I label it factory, it might help. So trucks come in, bring the factory its raw materials, and trucks come out and they have their finished goods. So you have a query, what do I want, and the database retrieves what you want very fast. Okay, and in one place. This is a factory, and this is also kind of like what a database is. It's like a factory. You have your query, your request for data, and you get it back very, very quick. It is purpose built to receive and retrieve data extremely fast, and they're only getting faster and better. Now, you have this other thing, and it's called blockchain. And blockchain is kind of like a bunch of people's garages. So you have thousands and thousands, millions of people who are connected to this thing. And every time you want to send and receive data from this blockchain network, I mean, it's highly dependent on the type of network, but in general, the vast majority of these houses with garages that have little pieces of factory equipment in them have to be okay. So let's just say you want to create a something 1,000 pieces for a part. A database, you send it to a database is kind of like you send it to a factory. It creates the 1,000 pieces, and boom, you have your part. In the blockchain, each of these houses has to create the 1,000 pieces. This isn't each house creates one piece. No, it's each of these houses creates the 1,000 pieces. So each of these garages has to create all of the 1,000 pieces to create a part. You can imagine that that is going to take a lot longer to create a part than a database. It's purpose built. It's huge. It only has to happen once. This has to happen all across the network in 1,000 places. Okay, so this is like a blockchain. So blockchains are a few examples are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Almost everyone has heard of Bitcoin because of the Bitcoin revolution, that or the Bitcoin bubble and then kind of bust that happened recently. It's kind of going back up, but those are some examples of blockchain technology. And this is what the underlying thing behind it is. So when you pay with your Chase credit card, it's like a database. Blockchain, it's like this, and it has to happen on all of these nodes, or at least a vast majority of the nodes, depending on what technology you're looking at. So why do we choose blockchain over a traditional database? Well, one of the main reasons is that in this factory setting, if a government wants to come in and regulate the factory, they can very easily come in and just say, boom, Chase Bank, we're going to regulate you. And all of the parts that come out of the factory, we are going to make sure that every single one is exactly specified to what we want. We don't want this person getting this part. So you can imagine if you're in a government area that is not, say, that is not conducive to women's rights, or things along that nature, like Saudi Arabia. They can say, guess what? We're not going to fund it. We're going to make sure that Chase Bank doesn't accept any payments to women's rights movements, because if they don't, then we won't allow them to do business in this country. However, in the blockchain, it's impossible for a government to regulate every single one of these houses, because guess what? They're all around the world. And so when every transaction has to go through and be validated by the vast majority of these garages, when a part has to come out of every single one of these garages and then is checked to make sure it's the same, that's basically how the blockchain works. So you're not getting 1,000 parts, you're not getting 1,000 transactions, you're getting one transaction, you're getting one part, you check that it gets the same out of all of these garages, and boom, you get your part. And guess what? There's no government that can censor a true blockchain. So one of the reasons is lack of censorship. And it being open. Another is that if someone were to go into this factory and they were to try to put a poison into the food supply, or the supply, or they were to put a bad agent into the dye. So they're making something. They're making a roof plate for a car, and they were to put something that is extremely brittle into the dye. They could do that fairly easily. However, if you're using blockchain, you have to validate 1,000 houses make the same thing. It's going to be almost impossible to do that. Okay, so that the security in a blockchain is much greater inherently than a database. So it's open. There's no censorship in general. If that's a benefit of a true open blockchain. Security, it's more secure. And these are really talking about, these are benefits to open blockchains. If you do a blockchain within a company, I think all of these benefits are, almost all of these benefits, I am yet to see a good use case, a compelling use case. Now, that isn't to say that it's not going to happen when the technology gets better and better, but I'm yet to see a compelling use case for a intercompany blockchain. So censorship, it's open, it's more secure. And finally, I'm going to say that I think that those are really well, it's immutable. That's the third one. And this is really getting into the weeds here. And I can do a whole tech talk for sure on the immutability of blockchains. But immutable, I would say, is the third major benefit here. So you can't put a bad agent into any of these roof plates that we're creating in here. It's much easier to do it in the database. Immutability, this is so let's just say that you want to, you have a roof plate that comes out of your factory. This is kind of stretching here, this physical example, but you have a roof plate that comes out of your factory and you send it to the customer. And right before it gets to the customer, somebody intercepts it and says, you know what, this is let's reverse this transaction. We don't want this to go through. We're gonna send this roof plate back, and we don't want this roof plate going to you for whatever reason. Say you're a women's rights group in Saudi Arabia. we don't want you to have a roof plate for your car. So we're going to send this back to the factory. Okay, you could do that. Well, in this situation, you have 1,000 roof plates. They're all checked by some kind of agent up here, by the entire network. So they're all checked. So you take your roof plates, you check them, and at that point, it is through. And once they're all checked, you cannot change it. It is going to the customer, the consumer, regardless in this situation. So you have all your roof plates, they're checked, and they're going to the consumer. So the immutability means that because they have all been checked, and because all of these houses have verified that the roof plates are going through, that means that it cannot be sent back in any way, shape, or form. It's an unstoppable roof plate. Whereas this, it is an unstoppable, unchangeable, perfect roof plate. That's what this blockchain is sending. Whereas this database, it's sending a roof plate that could be changed by whoever owns the factory, the government, or somebody who snuck into the factory. Okay, so that's really an unchangeable roof plate. Perfect. That's what the blockchain sends. So I hope this helped you understand the difference between a blockchain and a database. And feel free to like, subscribe, view all my videos, and ask any questions that you may or may not have. Thanks. This is Zach Fisher. And I really appreciate if anyone watches or comments on my videos. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So thanks.